My name is William J. Rothwell. You can call me Bill. And today I would like to briefly talk about my book, Adult Learning Basics, second edition, published by the Association for Talent Development. And in that book, I talk about all the key theories and basic principles of adult learning. We don't have enough time to go through all of those today in this short video, but I would like to make a couple of comments and provide some guidance on a couple of key issues that distinguish the difference between pedagogy, which is the teaching of children, andragogy, which is the teaching of adult learners, and gerongogy, which is the teaching of older adult learners. And this is an important topic in my book on adult learning basics. Of course, all books and research on andragogy has been based on the work of Malcolm Knowles. If you're not familiar with his work, please get a copy of some of his books and read those if you want to do a deep dive in andragogy. But basically, let me talk about a few key principles that distinguish adult learners from children. And children generally are willing to listen to anything adults tell them. So this is why in elementary school and even into middle school, and to some extent in high school, teachers make students dependent on them. Typically, the approach is the teacher talks to the students, and the students are generally passive receivers of information. And the assumption often is in pedagogy that the learner does not have a base of experience, life or work experience on which to build, so the teacher provides information. We might call that the barrel filling approach, meaning it's like pouring water into an empty barrel. And the child is the empty barrel, and the teacher is the source of pouring in the water. So that's the basic logic of pedagogy. Andragogy is different. The assumption is that the adult does have life experience, does have some work experience, maybe a lot of work experience, and therefore a barrel filling approach won't work. It won't work because the barrel is already full of liquid, which comes from the learner's work and life experience. So in this example of adult learning theory, the goal of the adult learning facilitator, the trainer, the talent developer, is to help the learner organize and make sense of their own experience so that they can apply it more effectively. So that's a basic principle of andragogy. Another is that we have to consider that previous life and work experience if we are to get maximum advantage from learning experiences. In other words, we often try to facilitate conversations where adult learners learn from each other's experience. We do this through breakout sessions, through experiential learning, through other methods by which the learners become the prime point of focus rather than the teacher, which is where the teacher is the focus in pedagogy. Another key principle is that for learners to be ready to learn, they must see the reasons why the learning is important. It has to speak to their work and life experience. And the more the learner sees the value of what they are to learn, the more likely they are to participate and be actively engaged in the learning experience. To give you a simple example, suppose your employer tells you that you are going to be rotated to the country of Japan for a multi-year job rotation as part of your development. As soon as you hear that, you probably will become very motivated to learn about the country of Japan because you know that you're going to be immersed in a different culture. And if you were a manager, you may have to manage a staff from a culture different from your own. And that means you must have insights into how that culture is similar or different from your own culture. So that would speak to making the learning valuable to the learner by showing them why they need to learn, or giving them a challenge and then they feel the need to learn more about meeting that challenge on their own. The orientation of learning has to be problem focused for adults. They don't want to hear about theory. They don't want to hear about the definition of terms. They don't want to hear about the history of the world. They want to hear about problems that they face currently and practical solutions or ideas about how to attack and solve those problems. So those are key principles of andragogy. Let me speak briefly about gerongogy. And that topic, I wrote a book entitled Working Longer. And that particular book talked about the importance of tapping the older workforce. You know, the world's population is actually getting older. And the reason for that is fewer babies are being born worldwide. And yet, because of medical advances, people are living longer. And that means long term, every employer is going to be faced with dealing with older workers because there will simply not be available the younger workers that so many employers have become to expect will fill entry-level positions. There will be too few younger workers to go around, so employers will be faced with needing to use older workers. But at the moment, there are many urban legends and stereotypes of older workers that get in the way of employing them and working with them to get the most productivity. What am I talking about? Well, you've heard the old saying, probably, that you can't teach old dogs new tricks. And that kind of stereotype gets in the way of taking maximum advantage of older workers. In fact, the research indicates that older workers are just as capable of learning new things and applying them as younger workers are. The difference is two things. First, older workers tend to have diminished sensory capacity, meaning their eyesight is not as good as it was when they were younger. Their sense of smell and hearing are not as good as they were when they were younger. And employers need to accommodate those differences, particularly in planned learning experiences like training or learning and development. But the point is that those older workers are just as capable of mastering new skills or keeping their skills up to date through upskilling, reskilling, and new skilling as younger workers are. And very often employers need to make their workers their already employed workforce aware that older workers are just as capable as the youngsters to learn new things. But there is one key difference, and we know this from research. Older workers are less willing to take risks because they don't want to appear foolish. And that means they're reluctant to just jump right in and try out something new. They're very cautious about how they approach a new learning challenge. And this gives the impression that they're slow learners. Nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is they're simply more cautious. Younger workers are more willing to take risks and even appear foolish as they experiment with new experience. Older workers don't want to look foolish, and so they are more reluctant to jump in and try out things. That means it's critically important when working with older workers in learning experiences to give them a safe psychological learning climate where they feel safer in experimenting and demonstrating new skills. And we may need to prompt them and give them support in demonstrating or learning those new skills. Thank you for listening today. My name is William J. Rothwell. You can call me Bill. If you like this video, please click like and subscribe to my YouTube.